Today is all about the art of devotion, and it may not be exactly what you think, but it does open you up to more awe for life and magic that awaits you. So let's get started.
Welcome to the I'm Perfectly Divine podcast, a place for the strong, sensitive spiritual seeker to recognize the perfection of your human journey. My work is to bridge both the emotional and spiritual worlds through proven and grounded frameworks that support you to live in the wholeness you already are. For over the past 2 decades, I have supported people from all around the world, as well as Fortune 500 companies, to dissolve the divisions within them and live with greater empowerment and love. This podcast is an exploration of the paradoxes that befuddle us as we live our lives being both human and divine. Together, you and I, along with other experts, will navigate integrating psychology and spirituality, the divine feminine and the divine masculine, the darkness and the light, to create greater sacred union from within. I believe through your remembering that you are innately divine, that you will allow yourself to more openly shine. So let's get to it, because your unique light is needed more than ever.
Hello, strong, sensitive, spiritual people. Welcome to this episode, which is all about the art of devotion. I can't wait to share with you about this tool because it's something that we are using, whether we realize it or not. And today is just about bringing it more to the forefront, helping us make it more conscious so that we can apply it in ways that really brings out more awe, more magic in our lives, which is part of the beauty of being on this path, of walking the way of love, of remembering who we truly are. And so this is a simple yet profound way that we can turn up that volume, which I think is something that we're all looking to do, especially when the external world feels very chaotic. And so devotion, let me just give a brief description how I would describe it. Devotion is really how we make something a priority and we give of ourselves so wholeheartedly. We really, it's like we lose ourselves. And we're giving ourselves towards something that we are deeming as important to us. And so, again, this is something we already do. And this is about how we can pay attention to how we're doing that, because there's ways that we can do it that are very healthy and supportive. There may be ways that are unhealthy, which I'm going to share more about how I found myself doing that. And then really what we can open ourselves to when we make this practice more conscious. So let's name some things we may already be devoted to. You may be devoted to a health routine where you wake up every day and you exercise, or you have some sort of health routine. Um, Perhaps you have a devotion towards your spouse or partner, your children's, your friend, your pet. You just feel this love, this unconditional love, this that's just you just want to demonstrate to this special person or animal or part of your life. Um, Perhaps you're devoted to giving time and money to a cause that really matters to you. Perhaps you're very devoted to your work and you feel it's your life's work and your passion. Um, or perhaps you are devoted to nature, to spirit, to the divine. And all of these are ways that in our humanity, we get to be expressions of divine love to one another and through our body. And so our body truly is this vessel that allows us to act out love and the physical experience of love, and then expanding the emotion of love through our devotion. And when we're devoted, it feels like we can just give so effortlessly because it is coming so genuinely from our hearts. And so to get to this place of being able to express our love in this way, it's being able to tune in to when we are being called to go into a practice of devotion because we have the bandwidth, because we have the space to do so. And so if you are not there, it's understanding that you may be in a different cycle of your journey and that you don't want to judge that. Sometimes there is a destruction part of our journey that is destroying the old ways so that we can come out anew and be more fully devoted. And please don't think that the destruction period is less than the devotion period because the destruction is part of the refinement. It's saying, this isn't working for you. You don't have the space, time, or energy to truly devote of yourself because there are things that are ready to be let go of. And we have to allow ourselves the human unfolding process of being able to shed certain aspects of our lives so that we resurrect anew, right? And from this new place of resurrection, we have more to give. So our heart will guide each of us as to where we are devoted to going next. And if you are really listening to your heart and you are going through a period of destruction, honor that because that is an act of the courageous. And I know it can feel like you're stuck there, you're struggling there, but just being with it rather than trying to cope through it, although you may find yourself coping through it at times, and that's part of our humanity that we're learning to work through as we go through that. It's just to honor every bit of our human journey, knowing that it is bringing us through and to a deeper expression of the love that we are, that we innately are, and we came here to be and express. So, really, for me, being able to listen to the heart means really being able to take the things that my ego puts as the priority and saying, you know what? I get it. That part is important, but it doesn't have to be everything. And for my ego loves to put my work as something that I should constantly be doing, work, 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 and put everything else on the side. And, I've had a family my children are now in their 20s. So obviously my family, my husband, they've always been a priority, but my ego has throughout the years gotten in there and say, okay, enough of that and time to get back to work. And so where I have come through with this resurrection process is being able to see the ways in which my ego has intertwined with something that is important to my heart, which is my life's work, and being able to refine that so that I know the difference between when it's my ego saying I need to work more versus the heart calling me as to what I am being guided to do next through my work. And it's a much different flavor in what I feel in my body, in my essence. And being able to be attuned to that is such a powerful distinction. And so the more we can tune into our hearts and be able to listen what it wants us to be devoted to, despite what our ego is telling us, the more we build our heart's muscle, the more we allow our heart to lead us. And so right now, where my heart is guiding me is devotion to my daughter before she leaves for Boston. She graduated college. She's got a job in Boston, which she's super excited about. And I have this precious time with her before she leaves soon in August. And then there's also a devotion to summer. I live in Wisconsin, and let me tell you, in the middle of winter, how I am craving the warmth. And then summer comes, and my ego can be like, all right, well, we've got work to do still. and really learning to listen to my heart that says, that's great. You can work a little while, and we're going to play, and we're getting outside, and we're being in nature because it's important to me and my soul, and it feeds my soul. And so it's being able to listen to the things that truly feed us, that matter to us, despite how our ego wants us to put one thing and say, this is the most significant thing. And it's for me and for all of us, I believe it's being able to recognize what truly is going to fill me up at this time. Because our devotion is there. It is us giving in order to receive. And now we don't do it in order to receive, but the spiritual reciprocity, the sacred reciprocity is that, and through our heart giving, and giving in such a generous way that we are able to receive more generously. It opens us up. It is this, again, this sacred reciprocity that is working through us, but we're not doing it for the ego's version of tit for tat. We're not doing it to get something. It's just a calling that we are willing to prioritize and have the courage to step into. And so, even though it sounds like, well, is it really courageous to devote ourselves to summer? It is. Even though summer is obviously the most pleasurable piece, it is when we have an ego that wants to define ourselves by being hardworking and fulfilling our life's dharma and purpose, right? It can get very focused on one thing and not bring in the entirety of who we are. And so our heart is always wanting the entirety of who we are to be nourished, so that there is more love that we have to give in our presence. And so the art of devotion allows us this. And so by devoting myself to my daughter, to summer, it is filling myself up in ways that I know that this time, it allows me to take in this time as precious. This time is fleeting. And so there is this beauty to honoring the present moment and the gifts that are in the present moment that my ego can't see. And it's teaching all of us, when we step into this tool, this art of devotion, to savor the present, to savor the small moments that the ego tells us is insignificant, and say, oh, no, no, no. These seemingly insignificant moments are the most significant. I mean, it almost brings me to tears, because it's those ordinary moments that our ego will just bypass, that are the things we are going to remember, that because they touched our hearts, because we allowed them to touch our hearts. And this is what we get to receive when we allow ourselves to be devoted to what our heart's calling is telling us next. And so it's my hope that you are able to give yourself this level of love, because it is such an act of self-love, but it's a love that others will feel through you, and there's such a beautiful ripple effect through it. So I love my work, and only the divine knows how crazily devoted I have been throughout the years. And what I look back now on, it's been to a fault, because my ego has gotten entangled with it. My ego had turned something that is important to my soul, but made it the singular importance. So, of course, like I said, my family has always been my priority, but my ego at one point needed my work to be successful in order for me to feel worthy. And so that's just one example of how the ego gets involved. And so maybe that's not the case for you. Maybe you've become overly devoted to a fault with a relationship that is now imbalanced, right? And you just feel it. You're over giving, and you don't feel like you're receiving in return. And it started as oh my gosh, I'm so in love with this person. But then if it's not, again, if there's that not that sacred reciprocity and you end up feeling depleted or unlovable, this is where the ego has gotten in the way of this. It could be trying to meet your children's every need, and it's again, that's coming from such an act of love, but then our children aren't able to be able to grow and recognize their own empowerment and to be self-sufficient because we have defined ourselves by trying to be a good mother or a good father, that definition means trying to meet their every need, and it could be unintentionally inhibiting them. Perhaps your ego gets in the way as an addiction to exercise, and if you skip a day, you feel bad about yourself. It could be an addiction to food or alcohol, where you are just so in the enjoyment in that moment that you lose a part of yourself that is starts to get use that as a way to numb yourself from aspects of reality, right? Even our devotion to the divine, the ego can get involved, where we get judgmental towards ourselves and others if we aren't doing everything quote unquote perfectly. And as you can tell by the name of this podcast, I have been there, that thinking that to get closer to the divine, I had to be perfect and try to do all sorts of crazy things. And it was out of a love for the divine, but it was actually taking me away from the divine and my connection to the divine within me. And so it starts out as an aspect of our expression of love. It starts out pure and joyful, and then the ego grabs a hold of it because it has meaning to us and it turns it into something else. And so this is what we want to be aware of in our practice of the art of devotion, is to, can we be conscious of it enough so that we are doing it in a way that is truly coming from a place of the wholeness of who we are, rather than the ego singling something out and saying this is everything, and then we make ourselves everything about that, and that obviously is not our truth and will hurt us. So really understanding the distinction there. So those years from when I originally started this podcast, and when I originally started it, it was called the Emotional Empowerment Podcast. And then I took years off, and then I changed it to the I'm Perfectly Divine podcast. And that is when my devotion began with Mary Magdalene. She was calling me forward to unlearn and unravel that which wasn't my truth. And I was being guided to go on the heroine's journey. And she called me to go back into the darkness of the womb of the Divine Mother. And with love and devotion and excruciating pain, I did so. And the way of Mary Magdalene, well, first of all, that is not everybody's experience of the way of Mary Magdalene. She just happened to be my initiation into the heroine's journey. And the heroine's journey tends to be painful because of the unraveling. And this is why, and you're going to be hearing, I'm going to have a free training coming up to help break down the framework to our journey to our sacred selves so that you can understand it more without it hopefully being so painful, because I think part of the pain is not understanding what you're going through. And so I have that coming up, but that's a side note. But anyways, if you're not on my newsletter list, please be on the newsletter list so that you are that you stay attuned to this, because it's going to be a very powerful experience that I want to invite you all to take part in if it's calling for you to do so. So, anyways, the way of Mary Magdalene and what she was teaching me through those years is that she can hold the all of who we are, of all of life, and transmute it to even greater love than we can comprehend. She taught me trust and faith so that I can let go and watch things and myself fall apart and still know I will be okay. And it's another reason why I want to share more about this journey, because when life feels so chaotic and out of control, we can learn how to connect with the heroine's journey as a source of strength for us so that we know we will still be okay. And so this has been my experience of a devotion to know myself by walking the way of love. And that's what the heroine's journey is ultimately guiding us to, is to resurrect to a greater expression of the love that we came here to be. What I think is so powerful is that each of us, like your journey, is going to lead you to resurrect in a way that is so uniquely you and so needed in the world. And so it's important to honor where you are being called in service of devotion and how you do it. One of the most beautiful reflections of devotion in my life is my husband. My husband is so beautifully, generously, lovingly devoted to me and my children. It takes my breath away. And it's just in him. And it's so honorable. And it's just it's a model for what is possible. It's a way. It's his expression of showing the way of love. Now, this doesn't mean there's not a shadow side. I call him the enabler. I'm all about empowerment, teaching my kids when they were young, like, okay, everybody has a duty. You're going to do the dishwasher. You're going to do all these, you're going to learn these things for yourself. And we always tease my husband that he loves giving so much that my kids are 20 years old. And if it were up to him, he would still be cutting their steak, right? So, I mean, that's an exaggeration, but we want to pay attention to the side that goes overboard, that overly defines us, that unintentionally creates imbalance. But the essence is of him, is the generosity of spirit that is coming through him, that is a testament to the power of love. And so, whatever you or another person is devoted to throughout your life, throughout our lives, or within a moment in time in our life, we don't want to judge, as we are each expressing an aspect of the divine through us. Because the way my husband is, like, that's not me. I'm not like I said, I'm more about empowerment, but together we balance each other. Together we balance each other as a couple. We balance the energy within our family and for our children. And so it's really important to be able to honor that. There was a point where I would judge myself, like, oh my gosh, should I be more like that? And certainly it's a mirror to allow me to expand into that more, but in my own way that is a true and authentic expression of myself, because I cannot help but be the person that loves empowering people and empowering myself and empowering my children and empowering whoever's around me. So that is the authentic part of me. And that rubs off on my husband and my children and vice versa. And so that is what we want to be able to receive, not only in our own acts of devotion, but be able to honor others' acts of devotion without judging ourselves, without that meaning anything about us, making another person superior, us inferior, or vice versa, that we see the collective experience of the art of devotion working through that person, that is their expression of the divine in this human form at this time, in this moment, and being able to be inspired by that and allowing that in spirit to see what spirit is guiding us next to devote ourselves to, and use that person's devotion and integrity and love as guidelines to show us that it is possible for us to do as well in our own way, in what is calling for each of us to devote to. what I will say is that the ways in which we can devote ourselves to our lives is there's so many different options. And one of the telltale signs, I think, is that at first it makes us uncomfortable. And so this is why um, it is an act of devotion because we have to set aside our ego in order to step into this act of giving of ourselves from this place of generosity and expansiveness while also surrendering to the unknown because our ego likes the controlled, our ego wants to know what is going to come of this, and that's not what this is about. So, one of my acts of devotion occurred about a year ago, but it was requested of me about 3 years ago. So, and I think I shared this story, but I'll share it again. I'll try to keep it concise. But basically, I was guided by Mary Magdalene to share with my church a group or open to my church about starting a group that is about honoring and celebrating and learning about the divine feminine and seeing if people would be interested in exploring this together. Now, before I had to do this, and why it took 2 years was, first of all, it took courage for me to do that because, church doesn't always bring in this aspect of the divine feminine, right? And so for me, while I was a member of our church, I was definitely an outlier. I have been on a devoted path to spirituality that's been outside of Christianity for many years, although I've always had a very deep and connected relationship with Jesus or Yeshua in his Hebrew name. And so it was very important for me to raise our children with the experience of Yeshua, Jesus, in a as open a church as possible that wasn't about like you're a sinner, but more about the love of Jesus, right? But I was going through my own journey of spirituality, and then the call into the divine feminine with Mary Magdalene. And so I would go to church off and on, but mostly off. And so here I was being called to do this, and I'm like, all right, well, I guess I need to come forward that I am someone who has been trained in understanding the divine feminine as a priestess and is walking this way of love. And so first I had to open up to the pastor of the church and was received thankfully with openness, with curiosity rather than judgment. And so that was the first doorway that I had to go through. And then I had uh, an opportunity to meet with everyone and just explore this topic at the first go around and share more about Mary Magdalene, share more about this whole path of sacred texts that have been found that date back to the Gospels, and some refer to them as the Gnostic texts, but they're not really Gnostic, but they're the texts that are found through the Nag Hammadi, other ancient texts that date back as far as some of the texts that are in the Bible, but have a different flavor to Jesus, the life of Jesus, and being able to share that with others because this is where the divine feminine has been excluded. So, anyways, I shared this with a group of women, and there are some that are excited and very curious, and we form a group. And the name changes a bit. At first, it's the divine feminine, but then people were thinking that it got all convoluted. So then we just called it the study of ancient texts. But eventually we went on to study the life of Mary Magdalene, and it's been very beautiful. But I will say there was a group at first that was very turned off by it. They were like, what is this? And this was my fear. This was my fear to be seen as something that devoting my life to the divine feminine, first of all, means that I'm excluding the divine masculine, which it does not, and especially that devoting my life to the divine feminine is somehow dark, and that's part of the healing that needs to take place within um, our understanding, because we are all we all have feminine and masculine aspects within us. So it only makes sense that there has to be feminine and masculine aspects to the divine. And again, the divine is above feminine and masculine, but we have these aspects, these attributes that need to come forward. Otherwise, we aren't able to celebrate, honor, acknowledge the feminine ways in which the divine is present within us and within our lives. And so much of this group has been about women feeling acknowledged. And again, not to the exclusion of men. We have men join our group. We have people outside of our church join our group. And people who once judged this as something scary are now finding their way to the group because they've heard about the love that is experienced within the group, because the group is about these ancient texts and Mary Magdalene, which is saying the love of the divine is within us. We don't have to look outside of ourselves or some authority to define ourselves as being worthy of it. We innately are divine. And all our humanity is guiding us back to that remembrance. Our so-called sin in these ancient texts is simply missing the mark. And when we miss the mark, your emotions are there and you feel it. And they're there as a GPS to say, that's okay. You were over here, and here's exactly what you need to do different to come back to your heart. And that's why I love teaching emotional empowerment, because I'm giving you the guidelines as to what your negative feelings are telling you to do or not to do when you're feeling out, when you miss the mark, right? That's all that it's about. And so, anyways, through this experience, through my devotion to Mary Magdalene, I did not want to do this group. I didn't want to share it with people about the training that I'm doing. And what I will tell you is each and every time we get together, I am blown away by what I get to experience in the people that join. I get to connect with them in a way I that just wasn't possible before. I get to see them in a way that wasn't possible before. And I'm experiencing their love, their wisdom, their insight that comes through as we share our experiences. And that to me is the whole point, is that when we get together, there's not one person that knows more about these ancient texts or these what is being shared through Mary Magdalene or whomever. It's we each have feelings that read a piece of text and that jumps out to you. And when that jumps out to you and it touches your emotion, and then you have the courage to share it, and I get to feel that, that becomes a seed, a ripple effect, something that I too get to now carry with me. That's a reflection of the divine that I wouldn't have experienced without you. And this is why we are each needed. This is why we are each powerful in this devotional experience. And so this is just the experience of our group. But what I'm telling, what to me, the message is behind the art of devotion is that when we say yes to it, even though it's uncomfortable, and it usually is, it's uncomfortable because it's giving us the opportunity for a bigger life that's than our ego can imagine. So what I invite us to take in is that devotion itself doesn't have to be this big thing. It is simply a commitment from your heart. And what I want to share with you is that my 30 days of play was an act of devotion. We did this in June, and it blew me away by how it changed me, by how it opened my heart. And it was a calling and it was uncomfortable. I didn't want to do this and I certainly didn't want to share it, but I was called to do it. And so that's the overall devotion to our hearts, that we're willing to do the things that our egos would rather not do. And as well as my devotion to Mary Magdalene. And here's what they have in common. I've got a few things that I want to share. One is that both allowed me, and I think whatever you choose as an act of devotion will allow you to be more conscious of time and energy and to give in a manner that really allows you to be present with how you are giving your time and energy. It's like your time and energy becomes sacred rather than just something that, oh, here I am showing up to go through the motions of life again. And I'm back at my computer. I'm back at, cooking dinner. And those things of in and of themselves can be devoted when that is what our heart is calling us to devote to. But my point is that whatever is being called to you to devote to, your time and energy just feel more precious because they're coming from your heart. It's also about being committed in a way that you will do something even when you don't feel like it. So I've done devotionals to Mary Magdalene over days. The 30-day play practice was certainly 30 days, and not every day I felt like doing it, but I did it because I was committed to this aspect of myself that was asking for more play, or to this aspect of myself that was asking to connect deeper with Mary Magdalene. And I didn't always want to journal about Mary Magdalene, but it was like, if that's what I was being called to do, then I'm saying yes, I'm stepping in and seeing where it takes me and just being curious about that without judgment, without expectation. It also will allow us to stretch ourselves, to allow whatever is running through us to take over us, so that we are literally allowing love to move through us. And this is how we become more embodied with love. That's why, like, when we are in an act of devotion, we lose that sense of ourselves. And we are just giving of ourselves in this time, in this space, and our energy and our love. And that is a takeover that allows us to anchor in more deeply the devotional lessons that we are meant to take in, which leads me to, not to mention, the profound gifts and insights that will come through your act of devotion. It just will. You're being called from the heart to expand your heart. And so there's going to be gifts and insights. Not that we do it to say, I'm doing this and now I expect all these gifts and insights to happen. It's just when we give wholeheartedly, this is, again, the sacred reciprocity. And then a deepening of what love means, looks like, and feels embodied within ourselves. It just expands it. It just takes it to another level that you're not used to, because it's going beyond what we are used to experiencing. And that's what devotion offers us. So, in other words, devotion to whatever your heart is calling you to next, whatever that is the pathway for you to more awe, to the lesson and gift of surrender, and the ability to tap into the profound magic and mystery that is right there, waiting for us. And that's exactly why our heart calls us to devote in healthy ways that are coming from love. In sacred texts, whether it's from the Bible or Mary Magdalene's gospel, there's a line that says, "Those with ears to hear and eyes to see." And this is really understanding that it's an invitation to go beyond the literal, the material, the physical aspects, to being willing to receive what is often right in front of us from deeper love. Like that's how simple the magic and mystery is. And yet we have to offer ourselves the space to have the ears to hear and the eyes to see and the heart to feel it and experience it. And with that, Mary Magdalene said in her gospel, may peace be within you. Because through devotion, the mind settles and the love that is all around us is let in just a bit more. And that is my hope and my invitation for you. I know we are going about life as best as we can. And, I certainly have my human aspects that are showing up with the ego and doing its human thing and all that. But through our devotion, we can walk side by side together through the way of love imperfectly, knowing that there's nothing too fixed, just to remember. Thank you for being on this journey with me. I'll see you next week.
I am so honored you have joined me today. If you enjoyed the I'm Perfectly Divine podcast, subscribe so you don't miss any of our power-filled episodes. Also, if you know another who is strong, sensitive, and spiritual and wants to dive deeper into emotions and ancient wisdom so they too can create profound peace and fulfillment from within, please share this podcast. Thank you again for joining me, and I look forward to reconnecting with you soon.